When everything familiar disappears, what determines whether a person actually survives?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Right. Because, we usually think about survival in terms of like physical strength or maybe having the right resources stockpiled.
Yeah, the typical survivalist mindset.
Exactly. But imagine you're playing this highly strategic game of chess. You know all the rules, you have this meticulously crafted plan, and you're winning.
Always a good feeling.
Ah, the best. But then suddenly someone just flips the board over, scatters all the pieces on the floor, and tells you that actually you are now playing poker. High stakes poker.
And I mean, you don't even know the hand you've been dealt. Your bishops and knights are completely useless now.
Right. The rules are just gone, the environment is hostile, and your previous strategy is basically a joke.
It's a terrifying scenario.
It really is. And that is the exact scenario we're unpacking in today's deep dive. We're looking at the psychology of survival and how to actually thrive in like profound uncertainty.
And the lens we're using for this is genuinely fascinating.
Yeah, it's the hit anime, Mushoku Tensei. And hey, if you haven't seen it, stick with us here. Our mission today isn't to, walk through chapter by chapter plot summaries.
Right, we're not getting bogged down in all the fantasy lore.
Exactly. We're mining the story because the underlying premise serves as this incredible, really extreme case study on mindset and decision-making and resilience when your entire world just gets turned upside down.
It's basically the perfect framework for a psychological breakdown because, what happens to the protagonist being suddenly teleported to this lethal, completely unknown continent? It's just a heightened metaphor for what happens to us in modern society.
Yeah, like you lose a career you thought was completely secure.
Or your entire industry is made obsolete overnight by some new technology.
Right. A global crisis hits. Suddenly, that deep-seated human need we all have for certainty is just violently stripped away.
And it leaves you feeling incredibly exposed.
So let's talk about that exposure and that desperate need for certainty. Because when the board flips, our first reaction usually isn't to, sit back, stroke our chins, and formulate a cool, calculated strategy.
Oh, definitely not.
It's sheer blinding panic. Like, why does uncertainty completely derail our ability to make logical decisions?
Well, it really comes down to how fear and anxiety essentially hijack your risk assessment. In an unfamiliar environment, the brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, just goes into absolute overdrive.
It just freaks out.
Totally freaks out. Under extreme pressure, humans just lose rationality. And why? Because our brains fundamentally shift their priorities. We stop prioritizing long-term strategic thinking, and we start prioritizing immediate emotional relief.
Wow. So we just want the agonizing discomfort of the unknown to stop.
Exactly. We want it to end right now.
Right. It's like this desperate attempt to just feel safe again right this second, regardless of the cost.
Yeah, and that's incredibly dangerous. Because to get that immediate relief, we grab at the very first thing that feels like a solution, even if logically it's a terrible destructive choice.
Like what?
Like selling all your investments at the absolute bottom of a market crash just to stop the anxiety of watching the numbers drop.
Oh, yeah. Or taking a really terrible job offer immediately because being unemployed just feels way too scary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you'd think the smartest person in the room would be the one to make it out of a situation like that.
Right. Like, if fear hijacks the brain, a highly logical, really intelligent person should just be able to use raw intellect to logic their way out of a crisis,
I
right?
think so.
But pure intellect can actually be a massive liability here. Highly intelligent people often fail spectacularly in survival situations.
They really do. And it usually stems from this psychological trap we can call wishful thinking or rootless optimism.
Rootless optimism. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Because intelligent people are exceptionally good at planning. They build these beautiful, complex systems. But that becomes a fatal liability when they start assuming things will work out simply because they've planned them perfectly.
Ah, so they fall in love with their own plan.
Exactly. They rely on hopeful observation instead of objective reality. They think, my competitor will surely react this way, or this market trend will definitely hold because my spreadsheet says so.
It's like designing an unsinkable ship and just assuming you won't hit an iceberg so you don't even bother packing enough lifeboats.
That is a perfect analogy.
Mhm.
The reality of survival requires the exact opposite. You have to constantly simulate the absolute worst case scenario.
So you prepare pessimistically, but you execute optimistically.
Right.
But, I have to say, I'm stuck on one concept here. There's a strong argument in this material about the danger of over-relying on cheat tools. Like in a fantasy setting, that might be a magical artifact that predicts the future. In our world, it's, state-of-the-art AI or a high-tech GPS. But I'm just not buying that it's a bad thing.
Why not?
Well, if I'm lost in the woods or navigating a massive corporate merger, why wouldn't I use the absolute best technology available to me?
Well, you should use it, absolutely. The distinction here is really about dependency. You cannot let the tool become the actual foundation of your survival instinct.
Okay, so what's the danger then?
The danger is that highly convenient tools act as training wheels for your brain. If you rely entirely on that GPS, your fundamental sense of direction, your ability to, like, read the sun, the terrain, or the physical signs around you, it completely dulls.
You just stop paying attention.
Yeah, you stop paying attention to the environment entirely because the screen is doing all the work for you.
So if the battery dies, you aren't just lost, you're paralyzed.
Precisely. True survival means maintaining your bare hands capability. You use the tools to move faster, sure, but you always operate with the baseline grit and situational awareness to keep moving when the tools inevitably fail.
Or when the algorithm changes and your perfect plan just falls apart.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The tool amplifies your capability, it shouldn't replace it.
Right.
So if pure intelligence can trap you in wishful thinking and over-relying on tools can make you fundamentally soft, what actually works when you are dropped into the total unknown?
Well, there's a brilliant insight in this breakdown about how we actually adapt. We can call it the necessity engine.
The necessity engine. This is one of the most practical takeaways for skill acquisition, I think. Because there's a moment in the story where a character is forced to learn this really harsh foreign language.
And they don't do it by, sitting in a comfortable classroom doing flashcards.
Right. If you're comfortable, you learn slowly. The best way to master something isn't to learn it before you need it. It's raw necessity.
You learn it while you were using it.
Yes, out in the wild. Because if you don't figure out how to communicate, you literally don't eat. It's the ultimate forcing function.
And if we pull that into a modern context, it's fundamentally about discarding perfectionism in favor of forward progress.
Right, because when you are thrust into an unfamiliar environment, maybe you've been promoted to a leadership role you aren't quite ready for, the instinct is to freeze.
People don't want to make a mistake. They want to read like 5 more leadership books before they make a single decision.
But the survival strategy is to literally crawl through the mud, making mistakes, looking foolish, and taking one clumsy step forward is infinitely more valuable than standing perfectly still in a clean suit just out of a fear of failure.
Because standing still means you aren't gathering any new data.
Exactly. Every time you fall in the mud, you learn where the slippery rocks are. But let me add a layer to that. Crawling through the mud is great, but what if moving forward puts a target on your back?
That's a very real risk.
Right, because making mistakes while you're alone is one thing. Doing it while you are surrounded by potential threats is another. And there's a fascinating risk management strategy for navigating highly volatile places, like a dangerous neighborhood or a deeply toxic corporate culture.
The NPC strategy.
Yes, becoming a non-player character.
It is so brilliant in its simplicity. When the protagonist is navigating a dangerous criminal district, he deliberately kills his ego. He doesn't make aggressive eye contact. He doesn't puff out his chest to look tough.
But crucially, he doesn't cower or look frightened either.
Right. He just becomes background scenery. Completely uninteresting.
I instantly thought of, like, walking through a tense, aggressive crowd in a major city or even dealing with internet trolls on social media.
Oh, it applies perfectly to trolls.
So survival isn't always about bravely standing your ground and fighting back. Sometimes it's about making yourself completely untargetable.
Yes, and let's unpack the psychology of why that actually works. Aggressors, bullies, or predators, whether in a fantasy tavern or a corporate boardroom, they are always looking for a hook.
A hook.
Yeah, they need a reaction to validate their dominance. If you react out of pride and glare back, you give them a hook. You've accepted the challenge.
Right.
And if you shrink in visible fear, you also give them a hook. You accepted the role of victim.
So you're feeding their behavioral loop either way.
Exactly. The psychological power of unreactivity, that NPC strategy, breaks their loop entirely. You are actively choosing not to participate in an unnecessary conflict.
It looks like you're doing nothing.
It does, but it actually requires extreme emotional discipline to swallow your pride and just be boring.
Wow, yeah. But, you can't be a background character forever. To survive long-term, you eventually have to build alliances. You have to trust people.
And navigating the waters of trust when you are completely vulnerable is terrifying.
It is, and there's a very stark warning here about the illusion of salvation. Like when you are at your absolute lowest, you've just been fired, your business went bankrupt, or you're going through a devastating breakup. The people suddenly offering a helping hand out of nowhere might actually be predators.
Right, and there's a specific archetype of predator discussed here. The person motivated purely by amusement.
Oh, those are the worst.
They view your life as a game. They lack empathy entirely, but they mask it with extreme charisma.
Okay, I hear that warning, but I have to push back a bit.
Sure.
It feels a bit disconnected from reality. Like, if I'm literally starving or facing imminent bankruptcy, I'm not going to sit around analyzing someone's psychological motives. I'm grabbing the life preserver. Are you saying I should just let myself drown out of paranoia?
I completely understand that instinct. I really do. But that desperation is exactly how exploitation works.
Yeah.
That is the exact mechanism of a scam. Desperation creates a massive mental gap in your logic. When you are drowning, your brain desperately wants to believe that the easy way out is real. The survival strategy is that you have to shut down suspicious or too good to be true offers at the door.
Before you even enter negotiations.
Yes, before you even engage.
But why at the door? Why not just hear them out, keep my guard up, and see what they have to say?
Because once you step onto their playing field, cognitive bias takes over. If you engage, your desperate brain will start looking for reasons to believe the scammer.
Ah, see.
You'll start rationalizing away the red flags because acknowledging them means returning to the pain of your actual situation.
That makes total sense.
There's a great rule of thumb here. People who constantly emphasize believe me or trust me are usually proving they have no actual grounds to be believed. Your best defense is a hard boundary. If your intuition flags it as off, walk away immediately, no matter how desperate you are.
Okay, so if we are shutting out the charismatic scammers, how do you find true allies? The protagonist survives by discarding labels. To find real trust, you have to ignore secondary information.
Right. Secondary information is rumors, societal prejudices, office gossip, or just what the internet says about someone.
It's information filtered through someone else's agenda.
Exactly. You must rely purely on primary information. What are your own direct, unfiltered observations of this person's character? How do they act when no one is watching?
You basically remove your tinted glasses. If the terrifying warrior with a terrible reputation is the only one actually protecting you, you trust the actions, not the reputation.
Exactly.
So we've got the necessity to adapt, the discipline to ignore trolls, and the intuition to spot real allies. How does this actually apply to you when your company suddenly announces layoffs or your industry faces a massive downturn? Let's bring this into the concrete jungle.
The translation to modern life is surprisingly direct. One of the most striking points is the concept of managing your gear.
Managing your gear?
Yeah. In a survival scenario, a warrior meticulously maintains their spear or their armor. In modern life, your gear is your PC, your professional wardrobe, your workspace, your physical health.
It sounds so mundane, doesn't it? Keep your shoes polished, organize your desktop files.
It does sound mundane.
But it's framed as a core survival trait. Why? Because neglecting your gear signals a profound lack of self-governance. It tells the world and your own subconscious, I cannot even manage my immediate environment.
And practically speaking, if you don't maintain your tools, they will betray you exactly when you need the most.
Like your laptop crashing during the biggest pitch of your life because you ignored the updates.
Yes, it's about establishing a baseline foundation of competence. And building on that, there's a really powerful lesson about client-first governance.
Client-first governance.
Yeah. In an adventuring party, trying to look cool or tough in front of other adventurers is a great way to get killed. In the business world, this means ignoring the peer pressure or the inner circle politics of your industry.
You focus entirely on the person actually paying you, the client.
Exactly. Your survival depends on delivering real value to them, not winning popularity contests with your competitors on LinkedIn.
Yes. Ignore the noise, focus on the value. And, when you inevitably have to collaborate with people, you cannot blindly throw tasks at them. If you delegate a job, you still own the final responsibility for its success or failure.
That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of managers.
Very true. But what happens when things get tough and the people you rely on start acting erratically? There is a really sharp insight here on what we can call survival lies.
Those survival lies, yes.
We see people lie all the time in business or relationships when they are cornered, and usually our instinct is to get angry.
Right. Our instinct is to go on the offensive, to attack the lie and say, aha, you contradicted yourself, I caught you.
But under extreme pressure, humans will tell incoherent, contradictory lies just to escape the immediate discomfort of the moment.
It's a primal defense mechanism. It's not necessarily a calculated malice. And the survival mindset says, don't attack the lie. Analyze the motive.
Ask yourself, why is this person so cornered that they feel the need to lie to me right now?
Exactly. It totally changes the dynamic. Instead of getting emotionally triggered, you are reading the battlefield.
You suddenly understand how much pressure they are under or what they are terrified of losing.
And that empathy, or at least that strategic understanding, gives you the upper hand to de-escalate and actually solve the problem.
That is a massive perspective shift. But understanding others is one thing. What happens when you are the one who makes a critical error? Because no matter how smart you are, no matter how good your gear is, you will mess up.
You absolutely will. And this is where the role of resilience becomes the ultimate survival trait. It's about how you process failure. Resilient people use a framework often called the PDCA cycle plan: do, check, act.
Right. It's the concept of debugging failure. Usually when we fail at a project, we tie it directly to our ego. We think, I failed, therefore I am a failure.
Which is devastating.
It is. But resilient survivors treat a mistake like a software programmer fixing a bug in a massive system. It's entirely objective. Okay, line 42 of my process had an error. Why did this happen? How do we patch it?
You don't sit around mourning your flawed character. You just patch the code and you run the program again.
And that ties directly into the speed of emotional recovery. There is a concept here we can call the 10-minute rule. True resilience isn't about being a stoic robot who never feels sadness or anger.
No, not at all.
It's about the speed at which you switch gears.
It's basically like setting a literal timer on your phone. You give yourself exactly 10 minutes to be completely devastated.
You sulk, you complain, you scream into a pillow. You just feel the absolute depths of the pain.
But when that alarm rings, the mourning period is over. It is time to move.
Yes, because lingering in the negative emotion consumes the mental RAM you desperately need to solve the problem at hand.
It also pairs with the wisdom of relaxing your shoulders.
Relaxing your shoulders.
Yeah. If a mistake isn't instantly fatal, it can be followed up on. It can be fixed. Hypervigilance, being tense and terrified 100% of the time, inevitably leads to nervous burnout.
You just run out of energy.
Exactly. A relaxed posture actually allows for much better, more flexible problem solving over a long journey.
I love that. Let's build a toolkit you can actually use. We've talked about the psychology of uncertainty, reading people, and emotional recovery. Let's distill this down into practical takeaways you can implement tomorrow when your own board gets flipped. First, how do you stay calm under sudden, overwhelming pressure?
There is a very specific grounding tactic for this. When panic sets in and your vision starts to narrow, close your eyes. Cut off the overwhelming visual input entirely.
Yep.
Then, strictly count the objective facts of the situation. Remove the emotion, remove the terrifying narrative of what might happen tomorrow, and just list what is factually true in this exact second.
Like, I'm in this room, I have this much money in the bank, this specific client just canceled.
Yes. It forces the logical part of your brain to re-engage and override the amygdala.
That's incredibly practical. Second, making better decisions. Do not rely on wishful thinking. Actively simulate the worst-case scenario so you aren't blindsided.
And crucially, don't leave tasks unfinished. Unresolved issues or messy interpersonal conflicts run in the background of your mind, like open browser tabs just draining your mental energy.
Make a decision, close the loop, and move forward.
Right. Third, when it comes to adapting when plans fall apart, there is a brilliant negotiation trick for when you need to assert yourself in a hostile environment.
Oh, this one is great.
State your case fully and strongly, but immediately follow it with an apology for being pushy.
I really want to highlight why this works. You plant your idea firmly in their mind, but the immediate apology creates cognitive dissonance.
Their brain doesn't know whether to fight your aggressive idea or accept your submissive apology.
It lowers their defenses completely because they can't attack you for being overbearing when you've already owned it and apologized for it. It's incredibly disarming.
It really is.
And finally, building trustworthy relationships. Give others room to be imperfect. Stop expecting your boss, your parents, or your partners to be flawless, perfectly rational heroes. Allow them to be human.
And alongside that, maintain comfortable non-interference.
Which means you don't need to micromanage someone to trust them. Think about remote work. You don't need to monitor your employees' green status dot on Slack every 5 minutes to trust they're doing their job.
Just give people space and
Yeah.
judge them by their output, not their constant visibility.
Exactly. So, bringing it all together, what does this all mean for you? The core thesis of exploring survival psychology is this: survival is rarely about being the strongest, smartest, or most heavily armed person in the room.
No, it's really not.
It is about staying adaptable, relying on raw necessity to force yourself to learn, building trust by seeing past societal labels, and having the sheer unglamorous grit to crawl through the mud and continue moving forward when the circumstances change.
And it leaves us with a final, really vital implication. We spend so much time looking for perfect leaders, crafting perfect 5-year plans, and waiting for perfect conditions to finally feel safe. But if true resilience comes from mutual aid, from covering for each other's blind spots when the plan inevitably catches fire, how might accepting the fundamental imperfection of the people around you actually become your greatest survival advantage?
Wow. That is a deeply powerful thought to take with you, because at the end of the day, when that chessboard gets flipped and you realize you're suddenly playing poker.
You can't control the cards you're dealt.
Right. But if you have the mental agility to accept the new game, read the players at the table, and keep your cool, you might just win the hand anyway. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of survival. Take these tools, give yourself that 10-minute timer the next time you fail, and we'll catch you on the next one.